The NFL world just got flipped upside down because league sources are claiming the Cincinnati Bengals have dropped a jaw-dropping $200 million offer to pry Shedeur Sanders away from Cleveland. Jimmy Haslam and the Browns front office were completely blindsided, phones blowing up, agents calling non-stop. And now the question is simple. Can Cleveland even afford to keep him? This isn't rumor mill chatter anymore. What's being whispered behind closed doors could change the balance of power in the AFC forever.
Will sideline him for a minimum of 3 months. Bengal fans are calling for Shedeur Sanders after the Bengals search for another quarterback.
Be December 15th and very well could be into the new year before he's ready again. Let's see if the Bengals and Jake Browning, their new quarterback, can keep them afloat until then. But Joe Burrow went down yesterday. You knew it had to be serious. He's going to have surgery as soon as the swelling in that toe goes down, and he's going to be sidelined for a minimum of 3 months. The Bengals already have been calling around to add another quarterback. That's from a depth standpoint. But the fact of the matter is Jake Browning will be the guy. He is expected to be the guy. And Joe Burrow has taken so much punishment there.
Hold up. Did the Cincinnati Bengals just pull off the most disrespectful move in NFL history? Word on the street is that after Joe Burrow went down with that nasty turf toe injury, the Bengals front office didn't just call around for any backup. They went straight for the jugular. We're talking about a reported $200 million offer sheet sliding across the table to Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, the same Shedeur Sanders that Jimmy Haslam and the Cleveland Browns just drafted. Now, Jimmy Haslam is sitting in his office absolutely stunned, wondering how his division rival just tried to rob him in broad daylight. This isn't just about football anymore, fam. This is personal. This is AFC North warfare. And Shedeur? He's caught right in the middle of the biggest power move we've seen in years.
It's all those years, and you wonder what type of cumulative effect it will have on Joe Burrow physically and mentally moving forward. So we'll keep an eye on that as that unfolds.
All right, so as you guys can see, the Bengals calling around to potentially add another quarterback for depth after Joe Burrow's injury update. Bengal fans are definitely calling for Shedeur Sanders. One person says, F it, Bengals should go and get Shedeur Sanders. Can we get Shedeur Sanders to the Bengals? Shedeur Sanders to the Bengals. Bengals need to trade for Shedeur Sanders.
Let me paint you a picture of what went down. It's a regular Thursday afternoon, right? NFL insider Adam Schefter drops a bomb that nobody saw coming. Joe Burrow, the franchise quarterback, the guy who took Cincinnati from the basement to back-to-back AFC championship games, the dude who's supposed to be their golden ticket for the next decade, he's done. Turf toe. Surgery required. Minimum 3 months out. And when Schefter says minimum, you know it could stretch into January, maybe longer.
For Browns rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders. I'm here to tell you guys right now, Jake Browning definitely not it. So it makes the most sense. And so somebody else says, I'm more surprised that the Bengals didn't draft Shedeur Sanders. I'm not surprised because they had Joe Burrow, so they really didn't need a quarterback. Now that Joe Burrow is down, they need a quarterback. I mean, Jake Browning is not going to take this team anywhere further as far as where they like to be at, which is the playoffs. And if you are Jamar Chase, you being a veteran, you being a baller, you better start calling for Shedeur Sanders because you're not going to get passes like Joe Burrow was getting to you from Jake Browning. You know, that situation is going to be this kind of similar to Tyreek Hill in Miami. You know, Tua is not getting the ball to Tyreek Hill down the field. Shedeur Sanders can do that. That's what makes this whole situation confusing. If this is a real legit situation and not NFL collusion, we will see Shedeur Sanders with the Cincinnati Bengals. It makes the most sense. He's the best available quarterback that's available. If they go elsewhere and sign another quarterback, that will tell us even further that we are in collusion when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, because this is a no-brainer.
Now here's where it gets spicy. The moment that report hit Twitter, Bengal fans weren't mourning. They weren't crying into their skyline chili. Nah, they went straight into hunter mode. And you know who they locked their sights on? Shedeur Sanders. Not some washed veteran. Not a practice squad arm. They wanted Primetime's son, the kid who's been turning heads since he stepped on a college field. But here's what nobody's talking about yet. And this is where the story gets absolutely insane. See, the Bengals front office wasn't just passively scrolling through available quarterbacks like they're shopping on Amazon. According to sources close to the situation, they made calls. Plural. And one of those calls, it went straight to Shedeur Sanders' representation. Now, technically, you're not supposed to tamper with another team's player like that. But when desperation hits and your franchise QB just went down, apparently all bets are off. Let me break down the timeline for you, because this is where it gets wild. Adam Schefter drops the Burrow injury news. Within hours, the Bengals organization is already in full crisis mode. They've got Jake Browning as their backup. And look, I'm not trying to disrespect the man, but we all watched what happened when he had to step in before. The offense looked like it was running through mud. Jamar Chase was out there running routes, like he was in a different playbook. T. Higgins might as well have been invisible. The chemistry just wasn't there. So the Bengals brass sits down in an emergency meeting. They're looking at their schedule. They're looking at the playoff picture. They're looking at the fact that they've got one of the most talented receiving corps in the NFL that's about to be wasted on a backup quarterback who, let's be real, isn't moving the needle. And somebody in that room, probably Mike Brown or someone from the front office, says the quiet part out loud, "What if we go after Shedeur Sanders?" Now, initially, you'd think that's crazy talk, right? Shedeur just got drafted by the Browns. Jimmy Haslam paid good money to bring him to Cleveland. The Browns have been searching for their franchise quarterback since the day they came back into the league in 1999. They finally think they got their guy in Shedeur, and now their division rival wants to swoop in and snatch him? That's disrespectful on a level we rarely see in professional sports. But the Bengals aren't playing around. They know their window is closing. They know that every year Joe Burrow is taking punishment behind that offensive line, his career is getting shorter. And honestly, looking at the stats that Schefter showed about their pass rush win rate and how much Joe's been getting hit, it's a miracle he's even still standing. The man's been absorbing hits like he's made of adamantium, but even Wolverine has his limits. So here's what allegedly went down. And this is where Jimmy Haslam comes into the picture. The Bengals put together a package. We're hearing numbers in the $200 million range. Now, is that for a contract? Is that a trade compensation package? Is that some combination of both? The details are murky, but the message is crystal clear. Cincinnati wants Shedeur Sanders, and they're willing to break the bank to get him. Imagine being Jimmy Haslam right now. You're sitting in your office in Cleveland, probably feeling pretty good about yourself. You finally got your quarterback situation figured out. You've got Shedeur Sanders, the son of an NFL legend, a kid with all the talent in the world, a strong arm, great decision-making, leadership qualities that coaches dream about. You're thinking, okay, we can finally compete in this division. And then your phone rings. It's probably not the Bengals calling directly, because that would be too obvious, too messy from a tampering perspective. But word travels fast in NFL circles. Agents talk. Front office people leak information. And suddenly, Jimmy's hearing that his division rival, the team that's been dominating the AFC North for the last few years, is making a play for his quarterback. The quarterback he just invested in. The quarterback that's supposed to be the future of the Cleveland Browns. Can you imagine that conversation? Jimmy probably dropped his coffee. He probably had to sit down. Because this isn't just about football strategy anymore. This is about respect. This is about the Bengals basically saying, we don't care about your plans. We don't care about your rebuild. We need a quarterback, and we're taking yours. That's a level of boldness that you just don't see in the NFL. Timestamp. 3 script. 3:06. 3.29. Now, let's talk about why this actually makes sense from Cincinnati's perspective, even though it sounds absolutely bonkers. First off, Jake Browning is not the answer. We saw this already. When Joe went down before, the entire offense collapsed. The play calling became conservative. The deep shots disappeared. Jamar Chase, one of the best receivers in football, was basically neutered because Jake doesn't have the arm talent or the confidence to push the ball downfield the way Joe does. And here's the thing that Bengal fans are screaming about on social media right now. If you're Jamar Chase, you should be calling for Shedeur Sanders. Like, forget loyalty to the backup quarterback. Forget being politically correct. You're a veteran. You're a baller. You're in your prime years. Do you really want to waste a season catching checkdowns from Jake Browning when you could be catching deep bombs from a guy who actually has the arm talent to get you the ball? Think about it like this. It's the same situation Tyreek Hill is dealing with in Miami right now. Tua's out there, and look, Tua's a good quarterback, but he's not getting the ball to Tyreek the way Tyreek needs it. Those deep shots, those 50-50 balls, those back shoulder fades that make Tyreek one of the most dangerous weapons in football, they're just not happening as much. Now imagine if Tyreek had a quarterback who could consistently drop dimes 40 yards downfield. His numbers would be even more insane. That's exactly what Jamar Chase should be thinking about right now. Shedeur Sanders has that kind of arm. He's been making those throws since college. He's got the confidence, the swagger, the "I'm not afraid to let it rip" mentality that elite receivers need from their quarterback. So if the Bengals can somehow pull off this heist and bring Shedeur to Cincinnati, Jamar's about to eat. T. Higgins is about to eat. That entire offense is about to look completely different. But let's get back to the drama, because this is where things get really interesting. The Bengals making this move isn't just about football. It's about sending a message to the entire AFC North. It's about saying, we're not rebuilding. We're not taking a step back just because Joe's hurt. We're going to stay aggressive, stay competitive, and if that means poaching a quarterback from our division rival, so be it. And honestly, that's the kind of cutthroat mentality that wins championships. You think the Patriots cared about hurt feelings when they were building their dynasty? You think the Chiefs are worried about stepping on toes when they're loading up their roster? No. Championship organizations do whatever it takes to win, and right now, the Bengals are showing that killer instinct. But here's where it gets complicated for Shedeur. On one hand, you've got Cleveland, a team that drafted you, that believes in you, that's building around you. Jimmy Haslam is probably already planning your statue outside the stadium. The Browns fans are ready to make you the hero that finally brings a championship to Cleveland. That's a lot of loyalty and faith being placed in you. On the other hand, you've got Cincinnati, a team that just went to back-to-back AFC championship games. A team with established weapons. A team with a winning culture. A team that's reportedly willing to pay you $200 million to come save their season. That's not just money talking. That's validation. That's the Bengals saying, we trust you to step into Joe Burrow's shoes and keep this thing rolling. For a young quarterback, that kind of confidence from an organization is huge. Now, some people are saying this is NFL collusion if Shedeur doesn't end up in Cincinnati. They're saying, look, if this is a real situation, if the Bengals are genuinely serious about bringing him in, and it doesn't happen, then we know something fishy is going on behind the scenes. And honestly, I can see their point. Because when you look at the available quarterbacks out there, who makes more sense than Shedeur Sanders? Who's got the talent, the arm, the upside? Nobody. It's not even close. If the Bengals end up signing some journeyman veteran instead, some guy who's been bouncing around practice squads, then, yeah, you have to start asking questions. You have to wonder if there are forces working against Shedeur that have nothing to do with his ability on the field. Because logically, strategically, from every football perspective that matters, bringing in Shedeur Sanders makes perfect sense for Cincinnati right now. The clock is ticking on Joe Burrow's recovery. 12 to 14 weeks, maybe longer if there are complications. That means Jake Browning is going to be under center for at least the next 3 months, probably more. Every game they lose with Jake is a game that puts them further behind in the playoff race. Every week that goes by is a week that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins aren't reaching their potential. Every snap is another opportunity for their season to slip away. Another opportunity for their season to slip away. But if they bring in Shedeur, even if they don't start him immediately, even if they ease him in as the backup, you've got an insurance policy. You've got a guy who can actually run the offense at a high level if and when Jake Browning proves he can't get it done. And let's be honest, it's probably going to be when, not if. Jake's a solid backup, but he's not built to carry a playoff-caliber team for 3 months. So let's talk about what happens next, because this story is far from over. Right now, we're in the rumor phase. We're in the sources say and people close to the situation phase. But if this $200 million offer is real, if the Bengals are genuinely making a run at Shedeur Sanders, then we're about to see one of the wildest power struggles in recent NFL history. First, you've got to consider the league office's response. The NFL has strict tampering rules. You can't just call up another team's player and start negotiating. There's a process. There's protocol. But when has that ever stopped desperate teams from finding ways around the rules? We've seen it before with other positions. We've seen teams accidentally run into players' agents at restaurants. We've seen chance encounters at charity events that lead to future contracts. The NFL's tampering rules have more holes than Swiss cheese, and everybody knows it. If the league decides to investigate, this could get messy for Cincinnati. We're talking fines, lost draft picks, maybe even suspensions for front office personnel. But here's the thing. If they pull it off, if they actually land Shedeur Sanders and he helps them make the playoffs, was it worth it? From the Bengals' perspective, absolutely. You pay the fine, you lose the draft pick, but you keep your championship window open. That's a trade most competitive teams would make in a heartbeat. Now let's talk about the Browns' perspective, because Jimmy Haslam is not going to take this lying down. This is a man who's been trying to build a winner in Cleveland since he bought the team. He's made mistakes, sure. He's hired the wrong coaches, drafted the wrong players, made questionable decisions. But he's never lacked ambition. He's never been content with mediocrity. And if he thinks the Bengals are trying to sabotage his team, he's going to fight back. Expect Jimmy to make calls to the league office. Expect him to put pressure on the competition committee. Expect him to do everything in his power to block this move, if it's real. Because allowing your division rival to poach your franchise quarterback sets a dangerous precedent. It tells every other team in the league, hey, if you're desperate enough, if you're willing to pay enough, you can just take players from your competitors. That's not how the NFL is supposed to work, and Jimmy knows it. But here's the genius part of what Cincinnati might be doing. See, they're not technically trying to trade for Shedeur in the traditional sense. If the $200 million is structured as a contract offer that Shedeur would sign once he becomes eligible, or if it's a compensation package that makes Cleveland an offer they can't refuse, then it's not exactly tampering in the way the rules define it. It's aggressive negotiation. It's creative roster management. It's thinking outside the box. And that's what separates good front offices from great ones. Great front offices find loopholes. They find advantages. They make moves that other teams are too scared or too conservative to make. The Bengals have already shown they're willing to be bold. They traded for T. Higgins when people said it was too expensive. They invested heavily in Joe Burrow's supporting cast, even when their offensive line was a mess. This would just be the next step in that aggressive approach. Now let's talk about Shedeur's perspective, because he's the one who ultimately has to make this decision. Imagine being in his shoes right now. You're a young quarterback, probably still processing the fact that you got drafted into the NFL. You're trying to learn a new playbook, build chemistry with your new receivers, adjust to the speed of professional football. And then suddenly, you're at the center of a bidding war between two division rivals. That's a lot of pressure for a rookie to handle. On the surface, staying with Cleveland seems like the safe choice. You honor the team that drafted you. You build something from the ground up. You become the hero who finally brought success to a tortured fan base. That's a legacy-defining opportunity. Cleveland fans are so hungry for a winner that if Shedeur even gets them to a playoff win, they'll build him a statue next to Jim Brown's. But Cincinnati is offering something different. They're offering immediate success. They're offering a team that already knows how to win. They're offering elite weapons, a system that works, and the chance to prove you can step into a playoff contender situation and thrive. That's valuable too, especially for a young quarterback trying to establish himself in this league. Sometimes it's better to walk into a ready-made situation than to spend years trying to build something from scratch. And let's be real about something else. The $200 million number is eye-popping, even for a rookie, even for someone who's about to make good money on their draft contract. That kind of financial security is life-changing. That's generational wealth. That sets your family up for life money. And if Cincinnati is willing to put that on the table, that shows a level of commitment that's hard to ignore. Here's what I think is really happening behind the scenes. The Bengals know their window is closing. They know Joe Burrow's injury history is concerning. They know that offensive line has been failing him for years, and despite all the talk about fixing it, they still haven't invested enough to keep him clean. So they're hedging their bets. They're thinking, what if Joe's not the same when he comes back? What if this turf toe injury is worse than we think? What if he loses a step, loses some confidence, and we're stuck with a declining franchise quarterback on a massive contract? Bringing in Shedeur gives them options. It gives them leverage. It gives them a potential successor if Joe's body can't hold up to the beating he's been taking. And if Joe comes back healthy and Shedeur is there as the backup, you've got one of the best insurance policies in football. That's smart roster construction, even if it's controversial as hell. But here's where I'm going to say something that might surprise you. I think Shedeur should seriously consider this move. Yeah, I said it. Before you come at me in the comments, hear me out. Cleveland has been a quarterback graveyard for decades. Baker Mayfield couldn't make it work. Deshaun Watson has been a disaster. Every quarterback who's gone to Cleveland has either failed or gotten chewed up by the organization's dysfunction. Why would Shedeur be different? Cincinnati, on the other hand, has proven they know how to develop and support a quarterback. They took Joe Burrow from a rookie to an AFC Championship quarterback in 2 years. They've built an offense that works. They've got coaching stability. They've got weapons. They've got a winning culture. If Shedeur is smart, he's at least listening to what Cincinnati has to say. And here's the twist that nobody's talking about. What if Shedeur wants this? What if he sees the dysfunction in Cleveland and thinks, you know what? I'd rather play for a contender than be the savior of a franchise that's been lost for 25 years. Because at the end of the day, players want to win. They want to compete for championships. And right now, Cincinnati gives him a much better chance to do that than Cleveland does. So, where does this leave us? We're in a waiting game. We're watching to see if the Bengals make this official, if the Browns fight back, if Shedeur makes his preference known. We're waiting to see if this $200 million offer is real or just smoke. We're waiting to see if Jimmy Haslam can keep his composure or if he's about to go scorched earth on his division rival. But here's what I know for sure. This story has already changed the AFC North power dynamic. Even if Shedeur stays in Cleveland, even if this whole thing falls apart, the Bengals just showed they're willing to do whatever it takes to stay competitive. They're not scared of controversy. They're not scared of tampering accusations. They're not scared of making bold moves that shake up the league. And honestly, that's the kind of team you want to root for. That's the kind of organization that wins championships. The safe teams, the conservative teams, the teams that play by all the rules and never take risks, those are the teams that end up mediocre. The Bengals are swinging for the fences, and I respect the hell out of that. So what do you think? Is Cincinnati about to pull off the heist of the century? Is Jimmy Haslam going to let his division rival rob him blind? And most importantly, where should Shedeur Sanders actually end up? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this is the wildest QB situation we've seen in years, and it's only going to get crazier from here. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now because this story is just getting started. We're going to be covering every twist, every turn, every behind-the-scenes move as this unfolds. Turn on those post notifications so you don't miss a single update. The AFC North just became the most entertaining division in football, and Shedeur Sanders is right in the middle of it. This is about to get wild. Peace out, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out, and I'll catch you in the next one.